God.
Okay, well, I believe we're on air. Hello, everybody, whoever's watching out there. This is In Pit Lane, the Victory Lap. This is our second opportunity to do this, and we've actually got a couple of people online this week. We had Mike Laminato last week. This week we have his partner in crime from ABC Grandstand's Box of Neutrals program, and not only is this his first Google Hangout, but it's a Google Hangout that he is now doing live from his car in the passenger seat, I should point out. It's welcome to Rob James. Rob, welcome. Where are you now, and where are you driving to, and why?
Michael's always a sensible guy on the show. I've always got to bring the wacky side of it. I can confirm right now I'm in a highly sensitive, secure area, also known as a storage box, where I now have to reveal to the general internet, including the good people of New Zealand with their sort of spy technology, the PIN number to my storage box. Star 195 81 hash. Oh, it doesn't work. Hang on. Yeah. So that's basically
while you're doing
to go to tonight. I've had dinner. I'm on the road. You know, I've got these commitments. I'll do it in the car if I have to. I am a passenger though, so I'm not driving. So Victoria Police, go.
Well, what I'll do is while you're doing that, we'll introduce our other guest online at the moment, and yes, we're going to join the editor of the E-Racing magazine, and Trent, tell us exactly what E-Racing magazine is and how that works, because obviously what we're going to talk about is for a little while is Formula E.
Yeah. Well, we launched in early Feb this year. I used to be the race editor of GP Week, and we sort of thought that the WEC series and Formula E was sort of, well, electric motorsport and endurance motorsport was underrepresented. So we started a magazine, an online magazine, which basically covered those two prongs of motorsport, with endurance and electric racing, hence the E-Racing tag. And we've just been going from strength to strength since then. So it obviously has been pretty busy with the overlap with WEC and Formula E going from 2014 to 2015. So you don't get much of a break in the motorsport year. Actually, there is no off season. It just keeps going and going and going.
Yeah, that's always the problem with motorsport, isn't it? I mean, it's been the problem with us doing the show for like all of the years, because every time there's sort of new management in at 31 or something, they say, well, like, when is the motorsport season? And you say, well, it starts about January the 1st and finishes December 31st around midnight. Yeah. So let's have a look at Formula E. I mean, you had a look at the race. What was your take on it?
Well, at the end of the day, I mean, I guess when you start a new race series, I mean, even if you go back as far as when they started the first Super Touring Car Championship in the 90s, that race was pretty orchestrated, and I think everyone who was around in the know sort of saw through that. Oh, okay, this is a bit of a dummy race, and you didn't have to do that, and it sort of damaged it a bit. And I guess that was the sort of the danger with Formula E, was that, okay, what are they going to try and do with the fan boost? Are they going to try and orchestrate something, and so it's not going to be real racing? But at the end of the day, you had a driver change, like you probably would in a MotoGP race where they're changing bikes if it goes from dry to wet. So jumping from car to car because the batteries ran out of power, which could have really spread out the field. But in the end of the day, it was a really, really close race. The racing was close from go to woe. At the end, it was very tight, probably too tight for some.
Yeah.
It was really organic racing.
Yeah. The thing about the cars themselves, those the Delaras, I mean, they're really great looking cars. Like I said on the show tonight, with our guest Thomas Randall. I mean, they're really nice looking cars. They come up really well on television. But the thing that I found, I was really surprised. I mean, I must admit, I was probably sort of looking on and with the poison pen ready to go, and they are very, very slow. But as you say, the racing was good, and yeah, I mean, they looked good, and you couldn't complain about the you couldn't complain about the finish at the end in terms of competitiveness. And I mean, they've been well and truly safety tested now.
Yeah, well, there was. I mean, the coming together between Prost and Heidfeld was, I guess, if there was an IndyCar race and it was one of those sort of really boring right-angle IndyCar street course kind of corners, if that had been, you know, maybe around Detroit or something, that'd probably be just one of those annoying accidents where the driver gets out and goes, oh, that was just a bit of annoying. But the sausage curbs, the height of them, obviously, when Heidfeld hit it, what was an innocuous accident turned into something close to, you know, the Concorde getting crashing. And probably because the cars were so quiet, you could hear a lot of women and children screaming as he was flying through the air, which probably added to the, you know, the dramaticness of it. But you know, it was a good race up until then, and that was just probably not the icing on the cake, but it sort of heightened the drama of it all.
The interesting thing, I think, is going to be, you know, they are teammates. So with Rebellion, and they'll be in action, you know, this weekend at the Circuit of the Americas. So, I mean, Nicholas has sort of apologised and sort of said, you know, mea culpa, it was my fault. But, you know, it was a racing incident that, I mean, it must have given Nicholas one hell of a fright when he's just given a bit of a tap, and the next thing, you know, he's seen Nick flying into the wall like that.
Yeah, I mean, it looked very bad from Prost's point of view, literally turning into him. It was a bit of a Vettel Turkey 2010 job, probably with a bit of interest involved in it as well. But I think because they were going over like a bit of a hump in the road, a bit like the Brickyard they have at Indy, and that probably unsettled the car. So if you're looking in the mirrors in an open-wheeler car, they vibrate so much you probably wouldn't have seen. He did look to the right, which I probably thought, oh, is he going to my right? And then it probably vibrated, but he didn't know where he was coming from, and then the move was too late, and it was sort of Bob's your uncle.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're right. They've got to share a car this weekend, the Rebellion, so that could be a bit interesting. But I think they generally made up. I think they understood that, yeah, there was probably it wasn't just an accident, one of those situations. But I think Nico's dad, Alain, tweeting from New Jersey, even though he was actually in China, someone was tweeting on his behalf from his PR department saying, yeah, push from Malaysia, well done, son.
It runs in the family. Rob, from a Formula One fan's point of view, I mean, what was your take going into it? I mean, were you a bit like me, a bit sceptical, and has it changed your opinion at all?
I absolutely was early on in the piece. I was convinced it would never see the light of day. It would, you know, collapse in a heap well before you know, any drivers or teams were announced. I think we had some serious players like your Andretti's and you know, even Jarno Trulli, who has been on Boxer Neutrals, boxerneutrals.com, for those of you playing at home, with our chat with you know, the team boss and the driver in Trulli GP in Formula E. Like, I grew more and more excited by the championship the more stuff came out. I mean, yes, it's one of those wacky formulas where, you know, drivers receive an advantage by virtue of having hashtags and retweets as a form of power boost, but Formula E is, and I've said this before, it's a truly 21st century kind of motorsport, and it genuinely is. If Formula One adopted the same regulations that Formula E had with regards to, you know, power boosts and how the format of the structure works, everyone would, you know, be crying blue murder of the FIA for doing it. But Formula E hasn't got that history of Formula One. It can truly do all these different ideas. And we've seen other formulas like, you know, A1GP with these sort of, you know, novelty formats. But Formula E in the long term has the backing of, you know, major car manufacturers. We've got, you know, Renault as the official drivetrain, I guess you could say, for Formula E, but then you've got, you know, the corporate investment from Audi, from BMW, and not to mention, you know, these big teams like you know, Andretti Motorsport and a whole bunch of Formula One guys, well, ex-Formula One guys in some respects, jumping on board. So, you know, the cars are slow, but, you know, that'll come with time. I wasn't the biggest fan of the doof music in the background of the cars. I found it a little bit jarring and distracting. Like, I kind of compared Formula E to a tennis match in some respects, where, you know what, if there's moments of silence, it's actually not too bad, because you'd rather be focusing on what's happening on track. And, you know, for a first-time event, something completely foreign and out there. I think Formula E did its job. It didn't have to wow everybody. But then again, I think if we did see Senna and Prost, on the other hand, coming together in the final corner of the final lap, then that would have been some fireworks for sure.
Yeah, I think the thing was, if it had been Senna and Prost, I mean, we would have been wondering if it was sort of a WWE style work. I mean, so much of it is contrived, and I think that's part of the problem. I mean, as John Hindhaugh on Radio Le Mans, they did a call, and as he was saying, the promoters have almost been at pains to say this isn't for you guys. This isn't for the traditional motorsport fans. This is a whole new generation, and we're doing a whole new thing. And he said that's really selling it short. And there could be a danger that this could actually be like a pretty decent sort of motor racing event and a motor racing series, which is possibly going to be overshadowed by the doof music and the gimmickry and all the rest of it. I mean, Trent, from the people who read your online magazine, well, we got someone, Joshua Springfield has just sent us a message saying that basically Formula E is a bit like 2020 cricket, and I suppose in many respects, that's very true, because it is introducing a whole new generation of people and a whole new audience to motorsport. And like 2020 cricket, you get kids who go and watch it, and then they say, I wouldn't mind going to see like a one-day match or or something like that. That would be interesting to in terms of whether it's going to bring anybody new to traditional motorsport. So, Trent, what was the sort of feedback you got from people on the gimmickry and all the rest of it? What did your readers think?
Well, it's funny. We had a few readers sort of saying, "Oh, the doof was a little bit too much, and they should pull that back." But that's an easy fix. You can just pull that out. But we also had some people who were on the ground there who are sort of really diehard, older motorsport fans as well. And it's funny how you say the 2020. I guess the only comparison to 2020 is the Test match cricket. And they actually said it had both those elements, because you had obviously the new side. It was very compact for a E3 or a Grand Prix. It was only 24 laps or so it was over very quickly, probably even shorter than a MotoGP. But the other thing they noticed as well is that with the absence of the motor noise, is that with the track rubbering in over the weekend, they noticed things that they'd never noticed before. It's like they could actually tell what kind of shape the track was in, or how green the track was, from the way the cars were actually moving on the track, but also the sounds that they were making as well. It's like, well, hang on, this has been around in motorsport since day one, since from ruin, but we've never noticed it before because we haven't had the absence of sound. So there's new parts of motorsport which have always been there, which are sort of coming to the fore, which you could argue, well, it's like Test match cricket, the little nuances that you have that everyone appreciates, they're there now for everyone to look at. And maybe the new generation is showing stuff that maybe we should have known about in the first place.
Yeah, it's a bit like when Audi had the diesel at Le Mans. There were a few people complaining about that, but I found it really fascinating to sort of be standing. We were there for the first year of the diesel at Le Mans, and standing by the track at sort of 3 o'clock in the morning and hearing the gearbox, hearing the tyres work, hearing the aero work. I mean, you could actually hear the air going over the car, and it was really fascinating. And for some reason, because it was almost that the lack of noise made the thing look even faster. And I think that might be one of the things with Formula E, as they're going past, you really probably think, there's not a lot of noise there, but by geez, they're moving.
Yeah, I mean, they're not fast per se either, but they do move. It's just they're in a street circuit, and it's very tight, and it's dirty, and they move around a lot, and they don't have a hell of a lot of downforce. In fact, they were saying, the drivers said, the downforce they generate is probably less than a GT Pro or AM car in WEC. So it's more like a saloon car these guys are trying to drive, but it looks like an open wheeler. Yeah.
I think it's got a similar power to weight ratio. Someone said a similar power to weight ratio as sort of a BTCC car or something, which which would equate in terms of and not having that aero. They are moving around a bit. But Rob, one of the things that the people said attending the race was the fact that that's really, apart from a bit of entertainment, that's really all that was on there. I mean, what are they going to fill in? Would this be an opportunity to have some karting or something like that? Something that it's a small circuit. You probably you might not be able to have full scale cars there, but I mean, should they have something else on?
It's a bit funny. It's a bit like the conundrum over in Formula One, where the GP2 cars are louder than the Formula One cars, and in some respects faster than a certain green-coloured Formula One team. That is quite interesting, because I guess Formula E is, there's nothing that you can really compare it to. I mean, there's, I think, the Bercy carts over in Europe. I think I remember seeing there was one, like a miniature version of the Race of Champions, whereby they were racing electric go-karts. So that's possibly something to do. I mean, they were quite interesting to hear, even the electric karts, because I mean, a go-kart makes a lot of noise that's drowned out often by that two-stroke motor, and you hear all that tyre squeal, which is a lot more dramatic in some respects than say an open-wheel race car or indeed a touring car. So, yeah, I don't know what they're going to do with the entertainment aspect. But then again, the whole debate with Formula E, whether it would attract, I guess, say, a mainstream motorsport audience. Again, it harks back to my earlier point about how Formula E can afford to break new ground. I mean, we could pitch this series to people who otherwise won't be into motor racing in the first place. So it's as much as we love the sounds of old V10 engines in Formula One and V8 supercars and sports sedans and even an improved production race, for example, that's got a lot of noise and fanfare about it. But I think Formula E's got a different market that they can tack onto, and I don't think it's a bad thing either.
Yeah, well, like I said on the news earlier tonight, for those in Melbourne who might have watched it, considering everything, you would have to put it down as being a success. I suppose it'll be interesting to see how the next event goes. While we're taking a break, we'll move on to something else in just a moment. But a special thanks to our sponsors at Dyno Dynamics. They've been great sponsors of ours. You can go to their Facebook page, like them, and all of those sorts of things. They're great sponsors of ours. They've supported the program, and as you can see on their Facebook page, they're also supporting Channel 31 and community television in Australia in its attempt to keep on air. So thank you to everyone at Dyno Dynamics, and remember, if you're looking for an affordable dyno, the Dyno Tech range by Dyno Dynamics, that's the one to ask out for, and tell them that you saw it on In Pit Lane. So let's move on. Like Rob, you're sort of without giving away too many secrets, you've been dining tonight with a very important man, and John Tott was there as well. So tell us what, and at this important event, the CAMS announced Formula 4. It's funny, we was talking with Thomas Randall last night about we haven't heard anything about Formula 4, and sure enough, typical timing, the next night they eventually do release some details. For people who haven't seen the details, CAMS are going to actually own these cars. They're going to buy 20 cars. They're going to hire them out to teams and drivers. 7 rounds, 3 races at each of the 3 races at each of the rounds, and all of the rounds are going to be held, and this is another interesting point, in conjunction with the V8 Supercar Championship. Rob, what was the reaction there tonight? And I mean, you're in a difficult position. You're working for CAMS, but what can you tell us? What is official from what was released tonight?
Yeah, well, I can editorialise about Formula E. You're going to be a little bit careful with Formula 4. Just stating on the fact, it's part of the growing ladder of motorsport, and it's set out by the FIA. So the FIA's long-term objective is for a real homogenous, ladder up from motorsport. So a logical step from Formula 4, Formula 3, hopefully one day a revival of Formula 2, and then ultimately Formula 1. I think we're all a bit surprised last year with the Formula Ford announcement, but obviously some people in the know over at CAMS were aware that, this was very much in the pipeline. And, just as a motorsport fan, I think it's great that we've got another wings and slicks formula, because I think, at least in Australian motorsport, there's a real emphasis for people, we'll just, raise a whole, another plethora of V8 supercar drivers. And that's all well and good, but we've got kids in Europe at the moment who are racing open wheel cars and serious open wheel cars. I mean, we've got a guy, Dan Ricciardo was a bit, when he was racing over in, Formula Asia, and then obviously Formula Renault with the Red Bull Junior program, he had to go to Europe to get some real hardcore open wheel experience. And, he didn't hang around Australia for too long. So that's why, it took a little while for Australia to really get to know this Daniel Ricciardo kid. We've got Mitch Gilbert as well over in GP3, who, ironically enough, despite being Australian, has never properly raced in Australia before. He's got a bit of an English background to his name, but nonetheless, we're seeing a lot of these guys going to Europe, and I guess Australia doesn't have anything that really mimics a European formula, because I guess we see guys that, spend some time in Formula Ford, in years gone by, and that's great. I mean, Formula Ford's a legitimate category that teaches you car control and how to slide and how to drift, but name me a current Formula One driver on the grid that's gone through the Formula Ford ranks. I think Adrian Sutil is it was a proper Formula Ford graduate, and Mark Webber, and he's not even in Formula One anymore. So, like, everyone's gone the whole Formula Renault, GP2 sort of category.
Well, that's interesting, because years ago we were at Macau, and one of the leading, because it was off the record, so I could say, but I'm talking, one of the leading team owners said to us, look, off the record, why do you keep sending us these Formula Ford drivers? Because we've got to reteach them to drive, because they're not coming. The guys from Asia, the guys from Europe are coming with this wings and slicks experience, and your guys come over here and they want to slide the cars around, and because that's the fast way of doing it. But that's not the quick way around with the modern wings and slicks open wheel formula. But Trent, I mean, apart from being the editor of E-Racing magazine, eRacing.com, you're also a competitor and a CAMS member. This is a complete departure for CAMS. I mean, they are now getting involved in the promotional business, and they are effectively using, well, I don't know, we don't know where the money's coming from. I mean, whether it's coming from members or, well, as a CAMS member and as a driver, how do you feel about CAMS actively promoting promoting a series?
It's a good idea, as long as, I think the biggest problem with open wheel motorsport, whether it's in Europe or Asia and Australia, is picking the right one. And I think we missed the boat in Australia when we sort of, well, I don't know whether we said no to it or we just passed or were too slow when Formula Renault was out. We probably should have grabbed that. Formula Toyota in New Zealand, when that started, we probably should have grabbed that first. We didn't. So now we're sort of going to decide where we're going to go. Now, if we do go with Formula 4, we really got to commit to it and promote it, put the money into it, and get the right drivers into it. The biggest problem they have overseas in Europe and England is that there are too many junior formula in open wheelers, and the drivers would tell you yourself. And I was talking to a couple of drivers who were out of that, who are now working with the FIA, and they said that most of the teams in, whether it's Formula 3, GP2, is that they are there to make money, and they're there to make money off the drivers. So often, the driver who hasn't got the budget to test will be right behind the eight ball. And once they take the money, they don't care about the driver, they don't particularly care about the series, they don't particularly care about the next group of wave of drivers coming through. It's about the quick buck and just sitting their own end. So if you can have a series, I think they've just got to look after it properly, make sure that the drivers aren't fleeced, and they actually can carry on and move on to the next step.
Yeah, I think that once again Josh Springfield has weighed in and said, "G'day, Josh, how are you?" He's pointed out the Toyota Racing Series in New Zealand. That has been a really, really good, big success. Not just I mean, basically, probably because of the fact that it's one, it's affordable, but two, the main reason is it's in the European off season, and all those young drivers, looking to get an advantage, to get plenty of racing miles under their belt, can leave a cold European winter, head over to relatively warm New Zealand, and get some racing in. And it's also run very professionally. It's a very professional package that they put together over there. I suppose the next step, I mean, as I said, obviously that has raised some questions here. And Andrew Sill from the Australian Formula Ford Association on his Facebook post tonight, and he points out this is his personal opinion. It's not, at this stage the official response from the association. But he's raised some questions which I think are interesting. As he's saying, he believes CAMS shouldn't be funding any series, regardless of what it is, including Formula Ford. Members' money should be spent to assist the growth and promotion of motorsport in all disciplines. Also, I'm wondering about the risks associated with this. I mean, what if it doesn't take off? What if they don't get enough people hiring, enough teams and enough drivers hiring cars? Where has this money come from? Have CAMS had to borrow money for this? I mean, it's going to be a huge investment. I mean, if you look at the cars, say let's say they're $100,000 each. They mightn't be that much. They might be more. But 20 cars, I mean, that's $2 million. And the last time I spoke to CAMS about money, they were crying poor. So where the hell's this $2 million come from?
Well, look, we don't know, but I guess no one either knows what are the costs going to be for a driver to enter the series. We don't know that either. And you've got to weigh that up against the cost of, possibly either going to New Zealand or potentially even going to Asia, where you've got Formula Masters Series, and you've got a large, I guess, companies and teams over there like KCMG who have got fingers in pies in Asian Le Mans and WEC. And there's a direct line. You don't actually have to do a number of single-seater formulas in Europe. You'll actually hop over and get a career in endurance racing if you want. And that's where you can forge your career now. Very few drivers will have a career in Formula One. So if there's a direct line and you can actually spend $100,000 and do an entire season in Asia, and you can probably spend $100,000 and maybe do 2 rounds, in a Carrera Cup or something here, what would you rather do? So until we find out what the costs are going to be in Formula Ford from a driving point of view, it's still, a bit open, I guess.
The interesting thing in terms of cost is also the fact that they have announced that they will be running with the V8 supercars. Now, one of the questions I'd like to ask, and hopefully we'll get the opportunity to get Eugene Arocca or somebody from CAMS in on the show at some stage in the next few weeks, is normally if you want to run with the V8 supercars, that comes at a pretty big cost. I mean, it's anything between $450,000 to $850,000 a year just to get on the package. Now, are they paying, as part of this investment, are they paying V8 supercars to get on the thing, or is this a deal they've managed, to do with V8s? I mean, James Warburton said, we're thrilled to have them on the card. I mean, if V8 supercars done the right thing and made a spot available for them at a reasonable price or nothing, or I doubt that. So all of these things need to be answered, because I think a lot of CAMS members are going to be asking, in other categories, are going to be asking, about how this has been paid for and what risks there are for CAMS if it all goes belly up. Rob, getting away from that, as you said, John Todt was in town and said all sorts of wonderful things. But what's he in town for? We haven't heard about this. What's he doing in Melbourne?
Yeah, he's not really in town for anything motorsport specific, but I guess with the FIA also involved in the automotive side of things, he's here for the FIA Mobility Conference Week, which is being held here. So it's sort of stuck under the radar a little bit. I guess, I mean, this week's not really all about motorsport in that regard, because the FIA does have its interests in the automotive sector. So it's really about raising awareness as to what they're doing, with regards to road safety, because they're really big on that, and that's a worthwhile thing to be really supporting. Because I mean, I think we take for granted a little bit, in motorsport how and even some of the manufacturers probably take for granted a little bit how much motorsport really helps the motoring side of things. I mean, we've seen, Ferrari introduce traction control, as a competitive measure, but we see it in all of our road cars now as an essential part of safety. Sequential gearboxes, safety cells. I mean, look at the crash Holdsworth had over at the Sandown 500. I mean, we see a lot of these sort of extreme trials in motorsport, and it's really filtering down to the road sector. So, people who always suggest that racing's all about crazy driving and just people crashing into things. Well, no, it's.
I think we might. I think Rob's hit a bumper. Either that or Dan has crashed somewhere. A lot of these. So Trent, we might just wrap it up in a second. But give the mag a plug again, and tell us a bit about it. Oh, first, before we do that, as you say, E also stands for endurance. This weekend, Circuit of the Americas, the next round of the World Endurance Championship. It's been a long break after Le Mans, just too long, quite frankly. But yeah, I mean, what are we expecting? I mean, can Toyota bounce back, or Porsche have been doing a lot of testing as well? What are your tips for this weekend?
Yeah, well, I mean, Toyota, their problem was just something really simple like a wiring loom which caught fire to their number 7 car. So they really should have run away with Le Mans, and I guess they're still the favourite, just in terms of the outright speed, downforce. They've got the whole package there. Porsche have obviously shifted their focus from straight line speed, because that was the lead up to Le Mans. They've put a lot more downforce on the car. They've been testing that. We've got a lot of tight and twisty tracks coming up with the Circuit of the Americas and Brazil, Sao Paulo, and Fuji coming up as well. So it'll be interesting to see how much they've clawed back in terms of downforce as well. And Audi it's interesting. There's sort of a bit of a dichotomy going on there, because they've sort of said, because they haven't moved up to the next kilojoule category in terms of energy efficiency, how much energy they can use a lap compared to Toyota and Porsche, and they've said, look, we don't want to chase that, we're going after efficiency, but at the same time we can't ignore what they're doing. So what does that mean? Are they going to chase them or not? So a lot of questions raised there, but yeah, certainly on the back of Le Mans, they pulled one out of the bag when no one expected Audi to do that. So yeah, it's very, very open.
Yeah, I said before, Lamont, I mean, you rule out Audi. Everyone said, Toyota have got this, but you rule out Audi at your peril. I mean, they've just been superbly professional. They're a very professional unit, and I think there's no doubt about it that next year they will move up into that next kilojoule bracket. And of course, next year we've got Nissan. I mean, as you said before, I mean, there's so many young drivers now, and we've had a couple in the last couple of weeks who have basically said, look, we're not waiting forever to get our chance in Formula One, because if we don't get something soon, if something doesn't come up, we are now looking at both FIA WEC and also Blancpain and all the GT3 series around the world. We've got a new 24-hour GT3 series coming up from Creventic, from the people who are partially behind the Bathurst 12-hour, although for some reason Bathurst 12-hour isn't a part of that, but yeah, it'll be interesting. Frosty the Snowman has asked, has Porsche got a winning packet for? I'm sure his name is pronounced Dasnoman or something. But Frosty said, has Porsche got a winning package for COTA? Do you think that they did much better at Le Mans than I really expected? Can they win it? Can they win it Circuit of the Americas?
There's no reason they can't. After what happened at Le Mans, I mean, obviously Le Mans, everyone had a problem at Le Mans. Not one car didn't have a problem, but it was just how you actually manage that. And Audi, just being so well drilled, were able to cope with it better than the others. Porsche would have learnt a lot. I mean, it's a whole learning season for these guys as well. But at the same time, they're going to be pretty hungry. They are moving into phase 2 of their program, obviously the downforce. So in a way, they're sort of starting from square one again. So they can. But they might have to rely on a bit of attrition from Toyota's side. I think Toyota's still the favourites.
Yeah, I think that I think you'll find that that Toyota are probably the favourites for this weekend, and I think Porsche will be up there. I think the interesting thing will be the battle for the minor placings between Audi and Porsche. And as we've seen in the past, it's a pretty keenly fought battle. I mean, within the same company, they don't want to sort of give much away with each other. Rob's back. I think so. We're glad, Rob, that you're there. I mean, he's having a beverage. He hasn't. They haven't run off the road. Rob, just a quick plug for Box of Neutrals coming up on Friday on ABC Grandstand and the podcast. Give us the details.
Yeah, so this Friday we have our, I guess, partial Singapore Grand Prix preview on 3:30 p.m. and 6:30 p.m. in case you miss it. Just before the football, all around the country on ABC Grandstand Digital. And also our 1 hour live race preview. No ads, no sort of joining of insurance company clubs, just good old-fashioned Formula One talk for an entire hour. That's from 9 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time on ABC Grandstand Digital for Box of Neutrals.
Okay, which Mercedes driver wins?
Valtteri Bottas.
All right, yeah, right. So that's one out of left field. I think this is. I don't know. Do you think that this circuit is going to suit the Red Bulls?
Absolutely. I mean, we saw at Monza it was quite an arduous task for both Vettel and Ricciardo. But if Ricciardo could pull out that result in Monza, what's he going to be like in Singapore? I don't think he's had the best record around Singapore. But he's changed a lot of minds this year, so maybe it might be a different story this time around over at the Singapore Grand Prix.
Yeah, Trent, your pick for this weekend at Singapore?
Yeah, Daniel. Yeah, definitely Daniel. I mean, he's shown, he's going to be quick at those kind of circuits, and every time someone's gone, oh well, he's never gone well there. Well, he's just blown that out. He's like a supercomputer. He's like a sponge. I've made a mistake. I'll take one step back and make 2 steps forward. And he just does that. And he would just keep doing that all year. So, yeah, I'll put money on him. Definitely put money on him.
Well, I've learned that putting money on any sort of motor racing is not a wise investment. If I was putting money on, I think this weekend, I don't know. I think that Lewis is coming back with a bit of vengeance, and I think that providing his head's in the right place. I think that he's probably my favourite. If I was putting money on, I'd probably be putting money on him. But once again, big weekend of motor racing locally, as we said on the show down at Phillip Island, the Shannons Nationals. Thanks to Thomas Randall for joining us tonight on the show. If you're in Melbourne, remember Channel 31 every 10 o'clock every Wednesday in Pit Lane, and then right after we will hope to continue the Victory Lap. It's got some good feedback. Thanks to Mike Jacobson, Mike, an ex-Sports Sedan competitor, and also was a Victorian correspondent for what I think is still one of the best motorsport magazines ever anywhere in the world, Racing Car News. Yeah, we will try and keep this format going over the next few weeks when we get time. I mean, it's just a bit of fun. It's just a bit of sort of value adding to the program. And remember, if you'd like to join in, leave your details, and you can get on camera as well. Because as I said, this is just a conversation between friends, basically a bit of bench talk. Trent, thanks for joining us. When are you racing next?
Oh well, I keep stopping. The car kept stopping every time when I entered this year. I think I did 3 laps and 3 rounds. So the car's repaired now, but probably Sandown Historics in November, most likely.
Yeah, that's good. And that's going to be a huge meeting. I've been told we could have as many as 30 odd Formula 5000s there because the New Zealand guys are coming back. So that will be something that's really worth seeing. Rob, you're not racing anywhere, but I mean we must give a very special thanks to your chauffeur for tonight, Mr. Daniel Thompson, for his wonderful work. There he is. And I believe you gentlemen are both coming down with us this weekend down to Phillip Island, and we'll of course have news from the Shannons Nationals on next week's edition of In Pit Lane. But for now, from Trent and Rob and Dan and everybody else. I hope you've enjoyed it, and tell your friends and join in, and we'll see if we can do this again next week. But from now, from all of us here, thanks for joining us, and bye for now.
Cool. Are we still live?